All right, so we're diving deep today into this article, Inequality Kills.
Heavy title.
Yeah, and it's heavy stuff, right?
Yeah.
It really got me thinking about the pandemic. Like, obviously, it impacted everyone,
Of course. Global.
global. But it wasn't equal, was it?
No, not at all.
And this article really digs into that, how it kind of exposed, like, just how connected health and wealth really are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like it didn't create the inequalities, but it definitely put a big spotlight on them.
Exactly, a magnifying glass almost. And one of the most, I don't know, shocking, I guess, things I read in there was about life expectancy.
Oh, right. Yeah. The differences.
Yeah. Like, depending on literally where you live, like what your postcode is, you could be losing years off your life.
It's wild, isn't it?
It's crazy.
Yeah. And when you see the numbers, like men in the poorest areas, they're losing what, 9.4 years?
It's almost a decade.
It is. And women, 7.4 years compared to like the wealthiest areas.
So wild. Like, what is causing that?
Well, that's the big question, right? I mean, it's not just the virus itself. It's, everything else, everything that comes with poverty.
Makes you more vulnerable.
Makes you more vulnerable, right? And the article talked about how, like, when the pandemic hit, people with money, they could just, like, escape.
Second homes, yeah.
Yeah, second homes, country estates. Avoid exposure completely, almost.
Right. And if you're working in, like, certain jobs, you don't have that option, right?
Not at all.
Like, if you're an Uber driver, a cleaner, factory worker, essential worker, really, can't work from home.
Exactly.
You're out there, exposed.
And that, on top of, like you said, existing health issues, I mean,
It's a recipe for disaster. And then you add on the fact that, like, even the coronavirus budget, like they called it.
The response from the government.
It didn't really address these underlying inequalities at all.
No, it felt very surface level.
Yeah. So, I mean, it makes you wonder, like, what happens next time, right? When the next economic crisis hits right? Because we're kind of overdue for something, aren't we?
Well, yeah, I mean, historically. And we have to remember, like, decades of austerity.
Yeah, cutting back.
Cutting back. It's eroded those social safety nets, all the programs like welfare, healthcare, housing, all these things that are supposed to help people.
It's chipping away.
Yeah, and it makes people so much more vulnerable, like not just during a pandemic, but just in everyday life.
It's a constant state of, like, being on edge.
Yeah.
And then, the article highlights this connection between poverty and just your overall health.
Oh, yeah.
Like mental health, diabetes, all these things.
It's all connected, isn't it? And think about it. Like, if you're living in poverty, you might not have access to, like, good food.
Right. Fresh produce, that kind of thing.
Yeah, or safe housing. Yeah. Or even, like, basic hygiene. All these things that impact your health.
Like a domino effect, almost.
Yeah, it builds up.
So the pandemic just kind of, magnified all of that. And I thought what was really interesting is the article doesn't just leave it there. It's not just like doom and gloom.
No, there's a call to action.
Yeah, it's like, wake up, people. What are we going to do about this?
Yeah, like finding a vaccine is important, of course, but we have to fight poverty too.
Yeah, like with the same energy, the same, resources.
It's a choice.
It's a choice.
And it's a choice we make as a society. We can't just treat the symptoms. We have to go after the root causes of inequality.
Like, you can put a Band-Aid on it, but it's not going to actually heal.
Exactly.
We need, like, a whole new system, almost. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know about you, but reading this was like, okay, we can't go back to the way things were.
No, we have to build something better.
We have to build something better. That's, like, the big takeaway. But what does that look like? That's the question I'm left with. What can we actually do as individuals, as a society? Like, what are those concrete steps to tackle this, even beyond the pandemic? Yeah. That's what we need to figure out.
Yeah, it's the big question. And it's a conversation we need to keep having, for sure.
Absolutely.